In Alien Earth the series, when a mysterious spacecraft crash lands on Earth, Wendy and a ragtag team of tactical soldiers investigate the situation and find themselves against the most toughest situation to go up against. Hey everyone, welcome to Cinema, where we focus on the film. I'm Josh, this is Simply Cinema. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought of Alien Earth the series. Was it good? Was it bad? Or somewhere right in the middle? I'll be keeping this review spoiler free, but it's my own honest expression on my thoughts for the series. So going right into the positive, Alien Earth doesn't hold back from being entertaining, and Noah Hawley as the director and creator for this project sets this up as a prequel to the whole Alien franchise, setting up some interesting ideas, but keeping it apart from not having Ellen Ripley be a part of it. So there's still something where it's very original by all the containment that it has within all the different plot threads, taking on 8 episodes, roughly 45 minutes to an hour each, which is proper within the means to contain all these different stories, things with a political agenda, things containing the technology and advancement of humans being created into robots. With technology being advanced, it hints at what the future to this franchise looks like as a whole, which is compelling by the nature of where we are seen by this being set in the past. What we get out of Timothy Olympus being the most recognizable name of this cast is really good, just being set as one of the villains, and just the villain cast as a whole is incredible within the way they have these different variations of creating their tone, whether it's within their writing and dialogue or within their own personal expression, the way they were directed to personify their personal character, but also, of course, what we get out of Sydney Chandler personifying the main character, the one that's portraying Wendy, which sort of goes about this Peter Pan-esque type of adventure that you're following about along the way, and it makes it clear what it's trying to represent, coinciding with someone else that is connected to the relationship of her family that she hasn't seen in a while. You'll see someone later on within the series that will really connect those two together, make it a little bit more personal within the relationship you're building with her, as well as Alex Lothar, who does a great job just as the parental relationship within that role. And going about throughout the series, there's just a whole lot of excitement, whether it includes the aliens and the alien type creatures, or the way you're following about all those fight sequences, the things that are building up the intrigue throughout the series. It's a little bit on the heavier side about the pacing of the first Alien movie rather than the second Alien movie, if you want to get a reference point of just the generality of it being a little bit more heavy sci-fi rather than action filled. While there is certainly the action it needs, it still builds upon the gore and blood that you would want from those intense fight sequences. It still leads on to have some momentum that takes its time to grasp all these characters, to build upon these stories that become compelling by their own means, even if they are a bit much for the amount that you're given. There's something that's just very interesting to see how these stories are compounded together, the themes that are drawn out throughout the series that really escalate some of the situations. And what I feel like the creator of this show does best within the writing and the escalation of the show is each episode has a heightened point of an experience that, even if it takes its time at certain points, it eventually gets to this really elevated experience of a certain fight scene, whether it's against the aliens or the political sort of idea of an intense court drama type of deal against what these villains are fighting up against, what they are fighting for. And it's sort of the evil corporations where they want to study the aliens. And you also got this other team that is all for trying to protect the aliens because he was part of the crashed spaceship that leads on to trying to figure out the differences and moral beliefs between each of these different sides, both the kids that are dealt with this technology, the adults that are part of this corporation, as well as the survivor of the spacecraft, that all deals with the different robots and things that you'll see within the future of the Alien franchise, but also the compounding beliefs and morality standards that you can ultimately expect to generally receive from these, getting a little bit of philosophy along the way, some ideas that really compound about something great, but still making room for some elevated action scenes, some really jaw dropping effects within just the technology and production, the actual real life things that are not just CGI, of just making it surreal as possible within this sequence with this lamb and this sequence that goes about this eye transfer and everything that leads on, not just with the alien, the xenomorph as we know it, but also these other small little alien creatures that build and expand the alien creature cast that just creates its own sense of originality that we haven't seen before within the other alien things. And because of all the technology that we're getting today, it, of course, while the original Alien movie from 1979 looks fantastic for its own time, Ridley Scott certainly had something down. With all the updated technology, there's something that still knows what it's trying to do, and it looks good following about along the way. Which takes me into the mix elements. If you're not a huge fan of the original Alien movie and its pacing coincides with that, this one may be a bit of a drag for you. I'm wanting to give you that as a fair warning for that brand of people. Not that it's a bad thing to have that opinion, just generally putting it out there. Sometimes slow is good for the purpose of what it does for the show, and sometimes it is a little bit of a drag that kind of puts it at a mixture of feelings. While it gives a great gradual progression, sometimes you want a little bit more of a blend from the action coinciding with the build up of characters, and sometimes it can bleed on a little bit too long at certain times, maybe feeling like it could have been a couple of episodes shorter, because even in episode 5, they include a full flashback episode that, while it included some details that were minor and coinciding with this particular character and the events that coincided before the crash landing, it felt kind of unnecessary to the means for where we're taking this show as a whole, maybe cutting that episode out or cutting something else just to make it a standard 6 episode series. Of course, sometimes more is better, but there's also a feeling that I had while watching the show that I felt like it could have been dealt with a little bit sooner, because this takes over the span of the whole first quadrilogy of the Alien franchise. So while yes, there is TV series that this certainly has the amount of substance that can fill the runtime, it's not necessarily making a lot of wasted time with all these useless subplots that lead nowhere. There's still a sense that I want things to quicken up the pace a little bit, even if it's not necessarily just to build upon the action. Just a little bit more character work falling about along the way could have been a lot more better with what we're receiving on the flip end of the deal. Which takes me into the negatives. Ultimately, there's things here and there that I feel there's a lot more I would have wanted from the characters. The character work, while it is gradually good to one sense, and you get that slower progression that allows things to build, that allows things to escalate in the right way, and while it has the entertainment value to bring you along the ride when things aren't necessarily catching your drift, there's just some things about this show that it bleeds on a little bit too long with so many different subplots, and not necessarily anything that feels like it needs to be cut out, but feeling almost like it needs more time or needs better use of its time to create characteristics within so many of its characters that there's a big cast within the crew, whether it's different soldiers that feel more important than they actually come out to be, or just with these six children, these five adults that are kind of the main crew, and everything that's coinciding with the crash landing, those characters and the survivor of that and his team ultimately comes out to be something that's a little bit too many characters for spending a little bit too little on them. It feels so spread out. And while, yes, you're getting the gist of all these characters, you're getting a few personal connections along the way. And while there is something to the point that I enjoy the evil bad guys being evil for the sake of being evil, not dissecting too much of their motives, there's still a little bit more that has to be asked, that has to show a little bit more of the proper motivations. While there is some questionable things about how characters decide their moral values, there's a few changes where it seems to alter their shifts along the way. Suddenly, a character decides to do something else rather than acting upon what we believe they would have done in the first place. There's just something that, while I can't complain about every single detail, there is still some significant means that all these small little details spread throughout that become a little bit of a problem and bother me. Fixing some of those or a few of those, or at least building upon the character frameworks a little bit better, or giving less characters would have helped a long way for ultimately giving us something that would have been more sufficient, especially given the runtime that we're escalating this show to. That while it didn't necessarily feel too boring, it had plenty of action, plenty of character sufficiencies to coincide with it. There were a lot of setbacks because of all the minor problems that you could have with it along the way. So that's just my personal thoughts on Alien Earth, which I have to rate as simply 6.5 out of 10. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought of Alien Earth. Was it good? Was it bad? Or somewhere right in the middle? Or if you're waiting for this review and now going to see the show or not, make sure to like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe if you haven't already to join in film culture community where we talk about the love of cinema as a whole. So that's just all, and make sure to do yourself a favor and go watch a movie.